on a distant world ruled by a large galactic empire. For a long time, this empire believed it had complete control over every star system around it. Generations of rulers had convinced their people that no one could challenge their strength. Many citizens grew up thinking the empire was the center of the galaxy, and everything else existed beneath it. The commanders at the top lived in huge halls filled with glowing screens, maps of star routes, and guards who never relaxed. Every day new reports arrived from the border regions, telling stories of small problems, trade issues, or simple patrol updates. It all seemed normal, until one quiet cycle when something unusual began to spread in those reports, but it started slowly, almost too quietly to notice. A small station near the outer edge of Empire territory stopped sending updates. At first the officers assumed it was a normal malfunction. Stations in rough space often dealt with storms, magnetic waves, and drifting debris. No one felt concerned. But then a second station went dark. Then a third. A few officers exchanged uneasy glances, but the higher commanders told them not to panic. They said these things happened all the time, and the stations would reconnect soon. The Empire had grown so confident that it ignored anything that did not fit its expectations. The commanders believed nothing serious could ever happen near their borders. They had powerful fleets, advanced shields, and long-range scanners that could pick up any threat long before it arrived. They trusted their systems so much that they refused to imagine something slipping through. Unnoticed inside the main command hall, one young analyst spent hours studying these border problems. He was quiet, focused, and often overlooked by everyone else. His job was to track tiny details that others ignored. Each time a station went silent, he highlighted the data on his screen and compared it with old records, trying to find a pattern. After several cycles, he realized that the silence was not random. The stations that vanished followed a very clear path, almost like something was moving through space, knocking them offline one by one. He hesitated before reporting his findings. The Empire was known for rejecting anything that sounded like a warning. But he gathered his courage and walked to the senior officer in charge of intelligence. He explained that the disappearance pattern looked deliberate. The officer listened with a bored expression, then shrugged and told him not to worry. The officer said it must be a simple power failure, and the analyst should not waste time on it. The young man felt ignored, but he continued checking the data in secret because something in his mind kept pulling him back to the pattern. Around the same time, a human exploration vessel was detected near a nebula tied to old Empire legends. The humans had been slowly expanding across space for many years, but the Empire never took them seriously. Most citizens believed humans were still behind in technology. Some commanders even laughed whenever the topic came up, calling humans harmless explorers who stumbled around the galaxy without understanding real power. So when the report came in about a human vessel near restricted space, no one in the command hall reacted with concern. They dismissed it instantly. They said humans had no reason to be feared. The vessel was probably mapping stars or studying cosmic particles. No one thought humans could have anything to do with the silent stations. But the quiet analyst sensed something else. He had studied human progress over the last several decades. He read every report that mentioned human science, human engineering, and human exploration. Over time, he noticed a strange speed in their development. They moved from simple ships to advanced models, far quicker than any species the Empire had ever seen. They built new engines without waiting centuries. They tested new shields without asking for help. They kept improving without showing their full abilities. The analyst tried to warn commanders about this fast progress, but they told him he was imagining things. They said humans were simply enthusiastic learners who copied technology from others. He did not argue back, but inside he believed the Empire was underestimating a species that never backed away from challenges. Humans had a long record of surprising their neighbors. Many small worlds once ignored them too, until humans surpassed them quietly and peacefully. As the days passed, the silence on the border kept spreading. Patrol ships sent out to investigate did not return. Emergency beacons never activated. It was as if entire zones of space were being swallowed. The Empire tried to send long-range pings, but no signal bounced back. They even blamed their own machinery, sending engineers to check the scanners. The engineers reported that everything was working perfectly. Despite this, the commanders refused to accept that something strange was happening. They kept repeating that no one had the technology to bypass their defenses. No fleet could move that quietly. No species could challenge them without detection. They insisted that this was only a technical issue, and the stations would recover soon. Inside the crowded command hall, officers grew restless. They whispered among themselves, wondering what would happen if the silence continued. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed pirates were responsible. Others thought rogue planets might have caused magnetic disruptions. Many were too afraid to mention the possibility of an unknown threat. But every pair of eyes secretly turned toward the screens, showing the vanishing stations. One night, as the command hall dimmed for the low-light cycle, a strange message appeared on one of the long-range monitors. A faint signal pulsed through the darkness. It was small, simple, and did not carry any harmful energy. The system flagged it automatically as an unidentified transmission. Officers gathered around, waiting for someone to decode it. The analysts worked on it for hours, but the signal was too unusual. It did not match any known language, code, or encryption. It looked almost like a short greeting, but they couldn't understand it fully. After several failed attempts, the commanders waved it off. They said it was probably a glitch, a drifting echo, or a broken probe. They ordered the staff to drop the matter and focus on more important issues. What no one realized was that the message came from humans. It was an attempt to make peaceful contact before entering deeper space. Human diplomats had carefully crafted it, hoping the Empire would understand the intention behind it. But the Empire's arrogance made them blind. They did not respond. They did not even store the message properly. They simply erased it and moved on. Meanwhile, the humans continued their approach, unaware that the Empire had mistaken their message for a malfunction. They were trying to avoid conflict, but their silence and rapid movement confused Imperial sensors. When the Empire sent scouts to intercept the mysterious signal source, those scouts did not return. For the first time, fear crept into the minds of Imperial officers. When the next patrol vanished without a trace, the command hall changed. People stopped whispering and began speaking openly about the possibility of an unknown threat. They questioned their earlier assumptions. They wondered if the silent stations were connected to the faint signal. Some officers even mentioned the humans, but the higher commanders still refused to consider that possibility. They said humans did not have the power to move this deep into Empire territory. They insisted everything would return to normal soon, but the quiet analyst knew better. He spent long nights reviewing human ship routes, old reports, and maps of the silent stations. Each new discovery made his stomach tighten. He realized the paths matched perfectly. The humans were moving with precision, passing through areas where the Empire never expected foreign ships. The analyst felt a mixture of fear and respect. He admired the humans for their courage and intelligence. But he also worried about what would happen when the Empire finally understood the truth. He tried once again to inform his superiors, but they brushed him aside. The Empire had grown so used to obeying its own beliefs that it could not imagine humans becoming a real force. The commanders told him to focus on routine tasks and leave the bigger decisions to them. As the cycle ended, the analyst sat at his desk staring at the dark screens. The map in front of him showed a long curved path of silence stretching across the border. It looked like a deep shadow creeping toward the center of Empire space. He felt a heavy weight in his chest, the kind that comes from knowing something important while everyone else refuses to listen. He whispered to himself that something was coming. Something fast, quiet, and far more advanced than the Empire ever expected. He sensed that the old days of total Empire control were ending. But he also sensed that the humans were not here to destroy. They were here with purpose, and that purpose was still unknown. The command hall lights dimmed as the cycle shifted to rest mode. Officers left one by one, but the analysts stayed behind. He felt the silence of the border pressing in on him like a cold wind. For the first time, he understood that the Empire might be facing a change greater than any it had ever known. And somewhere in the darkness of space, human warfleets were moving steadily, silently, and with a confidence that would soon shake the heart of the Empire itself. With the Empire slowly waking up to the fact that something strange is happening, even though the commanders still refuse to admit it. In the main command hall, more stations have gone silent, and the once busy screens now show empty space where patrol signals used to blink. Officers whisper about the silence spreading faster than before. The quiet analyst from Part 1 sits at his desk, exhausted from long hours of checking data that no one wants to believe. Even though he feels ignored, he keeps searching for answers because something deep inside him tells him that these events are connected. One morning, while the hall is still half lit and only a few officers have arrived, a new alert flashes across the largest viewing screen. It is a soft pulse, like a heartbeat, repeating slowly. A few officers walk closer, unsure if they're seeing a normal warning or another system glitch. The analyst rushes forward because he recognizes the pattern. It resembles the strange signal they received earlier and dismissed. This time, the signal is slightly stronger. It repeats at a steady rhythm, calm but impossible to ignore. The system labels it as unknown origin. A few officers huddle around the decoding panel, trying to extract meaning. The software tries every known language in the Empire's database, then every known pattern used by nearby species. But everything comes back as no match. The confusion attracts the attention of the hall's senior officer. He walks over slowly, clearly annoyed that his day is starting with another mystery. He listens to the analysts explaining that the signal is, repeating with perfect timing and doesn't match any random noise or natural space phenomenon. The senior officer frowns, but tells them to move on. He says signals like this drift through space often, bouncing from old satellites or abandoned probes, but the analyst cannot accept that explanation. He studies the rhythm carefully and sees that the signal is not random. It is too clean, too deliberate. Someone crafted it with purpose. He tries to explain that the signal might be a message or a greeting. The senior officer laughs quietly and says no species would send a greeting this close to Empire borders. The Empire has a reputation for reacting strongly to trespassers. In their eyes, no outsider would dare approach without permission. Still, the analyst saves the data in his private log. He wants to run his own comparison test later, even if no one believes him. While this discussion is happening, the report from the latest scouting team arrives. The report is short and worrying. Once again, the scouts vanished without sending any distress call. Every time the Empire sends ships toward the silent regions, those ships simply disappear. The officers start to feel tension in their stomachs. No one says it openly, but they all think the same thing. Something powerful is out there. Something that does not follow the Empire's rules. In another part of the galaxy, human diplomats wait patiently for a reply from the Empire. They had sent a peaceful signal days earlier, hoping to establish communication before moving deeper into the region. The humans believed it was the polite thing to do. They had no idea their message was erased, ignored, and completely misunderstood. They continued to send gentle pulses to show they meant no harm. But the Empire kept mistaking the signals for glitches. Human ships began preparing to travel forward. Their engines hummed softly as they activated new experimental systems that allowed them to travel through folded space. The humans did not know their movement was causing confusion in the Empire's scanners. They only wanted to explore safely without frightening anyone. Back in the Empire's command hall, officers begin to argue. Some believe the signals might be warnings from an unknown species. Others think the silent stations were attacked. A few even whisper about humans, but the senior commanders dismiss the idea instantly. They claim humans do not have the technology to reach this far without being detected. They say humans are still far behind in the great race of space. The younger officers, however, are not so sure. They have seen reports of human progress and feel uneasy. The Empire has been too confident for too long. Hours later, the strange signal changes. Instead of the single repeating pulse, the system now receives a short burst of structured energy. It lasts only a few seconds, but it is enough to send a shock through the hall. Officers run back to their stations, trying to decode it before it fades. The analyst quickly jumps into action. He runs several comparison tests and notices something incredible. The pattern inside the signal matches human communication structure. It is not readable in the Empire's language, but the rhythm, length, and pulse spacing are extremely similar to human-style transmissions. He freezes for a moment. His heart beats faster as he realizes this might be the first direct attempt from humans to communicate with the Empire. He walks to the senior officer, holding his tablet tightly. He explains that he believes the signal is human in origin. The officer listens with a deep frown. Then he shakes his head and says the theory is impossible. He repeats the same line everyone has heard before. Humans are not a real threat. Humans cannot cross fortified borders. Humans have primitive engines. The analyst tries again, explaining that humans have been improving faster than anyone expected. But the officer cuts him off and orders him to return to his station. The analyst nods quietly, though frustration builds inside him. He feels like the Empire is refusing to see the truth simply because it does not fit their beliefs. Later in the cycle, the commanders decide to send another scouting team, this time a larger one with more equipment. They hope the added strength will solve the mystery. The ships launch smoothly and disappear into the quiet border region. The command hall waits for a signal. Minutes pass, then hours. But nothing returns. At this point, fear spreads faster than any command order. Many officers stop talking about malfunction theories. They begin asking what kind of power could take entire ships without leaving debris. They question why the signals only appear near the silent zones. Some even wonder if the Empire is facing something beyond its understanding. As the hall grows tense, a low-power signal reaches them from the edge of the zone. It is weak and unstable, but it is the only hint of communication the scouts have sent. The hall erupts in activity. Officers scramble to stabilize the signal. Screens flicker as the system tries to translate the broken message. Static fills the speakers. The analyst leans forward, trying to catch any familiar pattern. For a moment, a short voice comes through. It is not clear, but one word stands out: approaching. Then the signal collapses. A heavy silence falls over the hall. No one knows what the word means. Is something approaching? Are the scouts trying to warn them? Did they see something before disappearing? Officers glance nervously at the screens. The senior commanders exchange uneasy looks, though they try to hide their fear. The analyst returns to his station and begins replaying the broken signal. He isolates the voice and studies it carefully. Then his eyes widen. The voice does not belong to an Imperial scout. The sound frequency, the tone, the style, it is unmistakably human. He feels a chill run down his back. The broken message was not from the scouts. It was a human voice speaking through the damaged channel. He wants to run to the senior officer again, but he stops himself. He already knows the officer will ignore him. Instead, he sits down and forces himself to breathe. He knows the Empire cannot hide from this truth much longer. If humans are the ones sending the signals, then they are moving through space far faster than the Empire predicted. And if they are approaching in silence, then they have technology the Empire cannot detect at the same time. The humans prepare for their next step. They believe the Empire has received their message and is ignoring them intentionally. They assume the Empire does not want peace, but does not want war either. So the humans decide to show themselves more clearly, hoping to avoid misunderstanding. Their war fleets, equipped with advanced travel drives, begin to enter folded space. They plan to reveal their presence openly once they arrive. Back in the Empire's command hall, the analyst watches the screens carefully. Tiny distortions appear at the edges of the map. They flicker like ripples on water, faint but rhythmic. He recognizes the pattern instantly. The distortions match the movement of large ships jumping through folded space. His heart drops. He whispers to himself that something big is coming. The Empire has no idea what waits on the other side of those distortions, and they still do not know humans are trying to communicate. Not attack, but the silence, the missing ships, and the unreadable signals are about to explode into a moment the Empire will never forget, the moment when human war fleets finally appear. In the early hours of a quiet cycle, when the command hall is still half asleep, most officers are going through routine checks, trying to calm their nerves even though no one feels truly safe anymore. The silent stations, the strange signals, the missing scouts, and the word approaching keep replaying in their minds. It feels like the calm before a storm, the kind of calm that makes everyone restless without knowing why. The analyst from earlier is already at his desk. He did not sleep much because he kept thinking about the distortions appearing on the edge of the Empire's territory. Something large was moving in folded space. Something precise. Something that ignored every defense line the Empire believed was unbreakable. He tries to warn the higher officers again, but he knows they won't listen until something undeniable happens. He sits in front of his screen studying the distortions closely. At first, they look like tiny waves, too small to mean much. But slowly those waves grow sharper. Each ripple becomes a clear, calculated movement. He feels a chill in his stomach as he realizes the pattern is synchronized. Whatever is moving out, there is not random. It's organized. It's coordinated. And it's approaching fast. More officers notice his tension and walk over to his screen. They watch the distortions silently, their faces tight with worry. One of them whispers that they should report this to the senior officers again. But before they even move, the entire command hall lights up with a sudden alert. A loud warning tone echoes through the room, and bright red markers flash across the main map. The alert puts everyone on edge instantly. Officers rush to their stations. Screens change rapidly as the system processes something huge entering normal space. At first, the scanners struggle to match the incoming data. The shapes are too large, too fast, too advanced. It's almost as if the scanners were never designed to read something like this. Then, in less than a second, the distortions burst open. Hundreds of massive ships appear across the Empire's border regions. Not near one station. Not near one border. They appear at multiple points at the same time. Large, silent, perfectly aligned vessels emerge from folded space. Their hulls reflect starlight like they are made of polished silver. The engines glow softly, not roaring, not burning, just humming with a calm power the Empire has never seen before. The command hall freezes that no one moves. No one speaks. Officers stare at the screens with wide eyes and open mouths. For a moment, they think the scanners are malfunctioning. They think this might be another glitch. But the system keeps repeating the same result. Unknown warfleets. Detected. And then the analyst whispers the words no one wants to hear. They are human. The hall turns silent again. A heavy silence. The kind that makes the air feel thick and heavy. The senior commanders rush in, demanding answers. Officers point at the screens, unable to explain how the human fleets entered Empire territory without triggering a single early warning system. The commanders stare at the data in disbelief. They try to deny it, try to blame their machines, try to cling to the Empire's old belief that humans lack advanced technology. But denial is impossible now. Every screen shows the same truth. Human warfleets have materialized without warning. At this moment, the Empire's pride collapses. Fear spreads through the hall like a cold wind. Officers whisper among themselves, asking how humans achieved such travel. The Empire spent centuries studying folded space, yet they never mastered it fully. Humans entering effortlessly feels like an impossible act. Some officers panic. Others say the humans must be preparing to attack. But the analyst watches more closely. The human fleets are holding their positions. Their weapons are not charging. Their ships remain calm, almost polite. They do not fire. They do not move forward aggressively. They simply stand in formation, waiting. A new message flashes across the screen. This one is stronger and clearer than before. The hall goes quiet as the system decodes it. It is a human message. A soft voice comes through, speaking slowly to avoid confusion. The language is different, but the meaning is unmistakable. The humans are sending a request to open communication. They repeat that they want to talk, not fight. The hall stares at the speakers in disbelief. Humans, who were once seen as harmless explorers, are now standing with fleets powerful enough to break the Empire in a day. Yet they are asking for peace. Some officers feel relieved. Others feel insulted, unable to accept that a species they once looked down on now holds overwhelming power. The tension in the hall grows as the senior commanders gather to discuss how they should respond. While the Empire hesitates, the humans remain patient. Their fleets glow softly against the stars. Their formation does not break. The steady hum of their engines shows they are stable and controlled. It is a silent display of discipline and confidence. The Empire finally sends a coded message asking the humans to identify themselves. This time, the humans reply with a simple and clear confirmation. They explain they tried to contact the Empire earlier, but received no response. They say their fleets entered folded space to prevent misunderstandings, not to start a war. They also mentioned they only traveled through empty zones and did not destroy any stations. They say they found the stations already silent. This information shocks the hall. If humans did not shut down the stations, then something else did. Something still unknown. The Empire's commanders grow uneasy. They always believed the silent stations were destroyed by a threat approaching from outside. But now they realize they have no proof. The humans might not be the ones responsible at all. Maybe they were simply passing through. A new officer asks if the Empire should send a defensive fleet to protect the capital. But others warn against it, saying a defensive fleet might look like a threat and trigger a conflict the Empire cannot win. The analyst quietly steps forward and offers a different thought. He says the humans could have destroyed the Empire instantly if they wanted to. The fact that they didn't mean something. It shows intention, restraint, purpose. For the first time, people listen to him. While the commanders argue, the human fleets begin to adjust their formation slightly, creating open corridors between ships. This gesture looks calm and controlled. Some officers interpret it as a sign of cooperation. Others see it as a tactical move. The system suddenly shows something troubling. Human ships are sending small exploration drones into the silent zones where the lost stations used to be. The Empire panics at first, thinking humans are invading. But then the analysts realize the drones are scanning the area, searching for clues. The humans are trying to figure out what happened too. The Empire never expected that. No one knows how to feel. They are relieved, confused, and threatened all at once. Hours pass with tense communication back and forth. Human ships remain patient, answering questions calmly. Meanwhile, officers in the hall struggle with their pride. The idea of humans once dismissed being so advanced feels like a wound to their ego. But slowly, the truth becomes harder and harder to ignore. The Empire is no longer the strongest power in this part of the galaxy. A new realization spreads across the hall. Whatever happens next will shape the future of both sides. The Empire can either choose conversation or risk collapse. As the cycle ends, the analyst leans back in his chair, staring at the silhouette of the human fleets across the screens. He feels a strange mixture of fear and admiration. The humans didn't just arrive. They arrived with a message that might change everything. And deep down, he knows the Empire is standing at the edge of something it cannot stop anymore. The moment of truth has arrived. The humans are here, and nothing will ever be the same. At a moment when the Empire stands frozen between fear and pride, the human war fleets remain outside their borders, calm and unmoving, forming a giant ring of silver light around the Empire's outer regions. Their engines glow softly, almost peaceful, but everyone in the command hall knows they carry power beyond anything the Empire has ever seen. The officers struggle to understand how humans reach this level of strength so quietly, without making noise or showing off. It feels like humans rose to the top of the galaxy, while the Empire was too busy believing it was already the best. Inside the command hall, the air is thick with tension. Officers move from screen to screen, trying to make sense of the incoming information. Data floods their systems, showing human ships spreading into positions that look like coordinated patterns of safety, not war. But pride blinds many of the officers. They refuse to accept that humans could be more advanced, and this refusal creates a dangerous mix of confusion and anger. One senior commander stands at the center of the hall. He is an old supporter of the Empire's traditions, a person raised to believe the Empire is unbeatable. He cannot accept the idea that humans are asking for peace from a position of power. To him, peace should be offered only by the weaker side. So he misreads everything. He looks at the human formations not as caution, but as disrespect. He mutters to the other commanders that humans are mocking the Empire, showing off their strength to humiliate them. Other commanders try to calm him, but pride is a powerful force, and it spreads through the room quickly. Some officers begin to agree, not because they believe he is right, but because they feel threatened. They cannot handle the idea of their empire being overshadowed. The belief that humans must be bluffing becomes their shield against fear. The analyst watches all this from his station. He sees the fear hiding behind the Empire's pride, and he knows the situation is becoming dangerous. Pride can push people into doing something foolish, something damaging. He tries once again to speak. He explains that the humans have not fired a single shot. He explains they are still trying to talk. But every word he says meets the wall of the Empire's stubbornness. The senior commander steps forward and announces an order that shocks the entire hall. He commands one of the Empire's border fleets to move toward the human line and test their reaction. The analyst feels his chest tighten. He knows testing humans like this is not just a test. It is a provocation, a spark that could turn the whole sky into fire. He speaks quickly, saying it is a mistake, saying humans have already shown they don't want war. But the commander raises his hand and silences him. The border fleet receives the order. Their ships begin to move, engines burning brighter. The human fleets notice the movement instantly. Their scanners track the Empire's ships, but they do not react. They hold their positions. The hall becomes silent. All eyes watch the map as the border fleet drifts closer and closer to the human line. The analyst whispers to himself, begging the universe for the border fleet to stop, to turn back, to show restraint. But pride has its own gravity. The border fleet continues forward until it is only moments away from entering the human formation. The senior commander gives the next order. A warning shot. The analyst stands up from his seat in shock. His heart pounds loudly. A warning shot in a situation like this is not harmless. It is a challenge. It is a threat. And it could destroy every chance of peace. The border fleet fires a single burst of energy into empty space, aimed high enough not to hit anything, but clear enough to send a message. The beam cuts through the dark like a line of fire. For a moment, the galaxy holds its breath. Then something happens that no one expected. The human ships move at the exact same time, not to retaliate, not to fire back, but to protect everyone. They create a shimmering shield of energy that absorbs the warning shot completely. The Empire's officers gasp. The shield does not even flicker. It is as if the warning shot never existed. The senior commander steps back in disbelief. This single moment destroys every illusion the Empire had. Their strongest border fleet fired a warning shot, and humans blocked it like it was nothing. Not only blocked it, but did so gently, without responding aggressively. The human voice comes through the speakers again. Calm, steady, and patient. They explain that they detected the warning shot, but have no intention to return fire. They repeat their message. They want to speak. They do not want war. They ask the Empire to stand down before someone makes a mistake that cannot be undone. The hall fills with whispers. Some officers feel shame. Others feel fear. Many feel overwhelmed. The human ability to defuse the warning shot without escalation is something only a disciplined, confident power could do. The senior commander tries to issue another order, but before he can finish, the Capital Council arrives. They have been watching the events unfold through private channels. They take control of the command hall instantly. The senior commander is removed from his position, his authority stripped away. The council members are pale with worry. They understand the danger better than anyone. If the Empire keeps provoking humans, their entire civilization could crumble before sunrise. The analyst feels a wave of relief. Finally, someone with sense has stepped in. He steps forward and begins explaining everything he has observed. The council listens carefully. He shows them the message patterns. He plays the human transmissions. He explains how the humans have shown restraint at every step. He also shows how the silent stations were already destroyed before humans arrived. For the first time, someone in authority finally believes him. The council members thank him and begin preparing a response to the humans. They explain they are willing to talk. They ask for a safe channel for communication. The humans respond instantly with a peaceful tone, sending coordinates for a neutral meeting space. But not everyone in the Empire accepts peace so easily. A group of officers still cling to their pride. They whisper that accepting peace means admitting weakness. They say the Empire should attack first before the humans gain more control. Their whispers reach the wrong ears. In panic, another officer secretly sends a coded command to a separate fleet, telling them to launch a surprise strike against the humans before the Council's message spreads. He thinks he is protecting the Empire, but he is actually pushing it toward disaster. The Empire fleet begins to arm their cannons quietly. Their engines grow brighter as they prepare to strike. The analyst sees the energy spikes on the screens. His heartbeat rises sharply. He runs to the Council and warns them. The Council acts quickly, sending an urgent command to stop the fleet. But they are too late. The Empire fleet fires a full strike at the human line. It is the moment the galaxy changes. The human ships respond instantly, but again, they do not fire back. Instead, their entire formation lights up. A massive wave of energy spreads outward, covering the Empire fleet like a soft net. Every Imperial weapon shuts down. Every engine powers off. Every ship loses control of its systems. But none of them explode. Humans disabled the entire fleet without harming a single soul. The Empire watches in shock. Their strongest attack was neutralized like a child being gently held back from running into danger. The human voice speaks again. Calm, patient, but firm. They explain they will not allow any harm. They say they will not retaliate, but will stop any future attack instantly. The hall trembles. Officers who supported war are silent now. Their pride breaks. Their confidence collapses. The Council finally understands the truth. Humans are not trying to conquer the Empire. They are trying to save them from themselves. And in that moment, the Empire realizes it is not facing an enemy. It is facing a civilization that grew wiser, stronger, and more disciplined than they ever imagined. A civilization that could destroy them, but chooses peace instead. But the damage is already done. The Empire now stands exposed, ashamed, and shaken to its core. And everyone knows the next decision they make will decide the Empire's fate forever. The Empire had never been this quiet. Every hall in the command center felt heavy, as if the entire place was holding its breath. The news had spread faster than any official announcement. Every worker, guard, and officer knew that a final decision was coming. Everyone felt the same fear, even if they tried to hide it behind straight backs and calm faces. The capital planet had always been the heart of the Empire, proud and loud, but now the whole world seemed to listen for the next move. Rumors filled the air. Some said the humans were preparing their biggest fleet yet. Others said the humans wanted peace, but were forced to defend themselves. Some even whispered that the humans had found allies in other corners of the galaxy, allies who had quietly suffered under the Empire's rule. No one knew the truth, but fear made every rumor feel real. Inside the war chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Dozens of high-ranking officers stood around a massive round table, staring at a projection of space above them. Bright lines showed defensive zones, fleets, and positions around the capital. The outer rings were already lost. Human ships had appeared there without warning and shut down every Imperial weapon in seconds. The middle rings fell soon after. Now, only the last ring remained, the one directly protecting the capital. The officers argued with raised voices. Some demanded negotiation. Others demanded a full attack. Some simply wanted the fear to end. At the center of the room, the commanding officer sat silently. He was older now, tired from years of trying to hold an empire that had grown too large, too arrogant, too blind. He had spent his life believing in the Empire's strength, but the last few days had changed that belief more than decades of doubt ever could. A young officer, one of the few who still believed in peace, stepped forward. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. He pointed at the projection of the human fleet near the capital. "We have seen what they can do. They shut down our ships without hurting anyone. They warned us again and again. They gave us time to make the right choice. If we attack now, we will lose everything. There is still a chance to talk." Across the table, another officer stepped forward, his tone sharp and hardened by years of pride. "You call that mercy? You call that peace? They are already inside our borders. If we surrender, we lose our future. We lose our identity. If we fight, at least we fall with honor." The room erupted again. Arguments flew like arrows. For every voice that pleaded for peace, Another voice shouted for war. For every officer who saw hope, another only saw humiliation. Meanwhile, across the capital, people gathered in streets, apartments, and open squares. Everyone looked up at the sky. The giant shield around the planet glowed softly, a thin layer of defense that had never been tested against something like the human fleet. Families held hands. Workers abandoned their posts. Children looked up, confused but curious. The world waited. Far above, in the dark of space, the human fleet remained still. Their ships were silent, steady, and without any sign of fear or aggression. Their design was simple yet powerful. The Empire had never seen vessels like these. They were precise, calm, and confident. A message came from the human command. It was short and clear. It said they wished to avoid war. It said the Empire still had time to choose peace. It said no one had to suffer. The message echoed through every speaker in the war chamber. No one spoke for several seconds. Then the commanding officer stood. The room went quiet. "We have reached the edge," he said in a calm voice. "Everything we built is shaking. Everything we believed in is being tested. We can fight, but we know the outcome. We can talk, but some of you fear shame more than death." He looked around at the faces watching him. Some filled with fear. Some filled with stubborn pride. Some filled with confusion. "I made many choices in my life," he continued, "but now this choice belongs to all of us." He turned to the main screen. "Send an answer," he said, "but I want everyone here to vote." It was the first time in the Empire's long history that a military decision of this scale was open to a room-wide vote. The officers exchanged surprised looks. Some seemed relieved. Others seemed offended. But no one objected. A panel appeared. Two simple options. Surrender. Fight. One by one, the officers placed their votes. The room felt colder with every step. No one tried to see how the others voted. No one spoke. The sound of each vote tapping in almost echoed. When the final vote was in, the results appeared on the hologram. Fight. The room did not cheer. Instead, there was a strange silence. A heavy silence. Even those who voted for war felt a weight settle inside them. Because now there was no turning back. The commanding officer did not show anger or sadness. He nodded once, slowly. "Then we follow the will of this council." Preparations moved at once. Fleets were activated. Pilots took their seats, some whispering quiet words to themselves as they prepared for a battle they knew they could not win. Soldiers readied their stations. Technicians rushed through corridors. Emergency lights flashed across the base. The entire planet felt the shift, as though the air had changed its temperature. The final armada gathered above the capital, thousands of ships stretching across the sky. It was the largest force the Empire had ever assembled in a single place. It looked powerful, but for the first time, the people watching from the ground could see fear in the formations. The positions were tight, almost desperate. The ships were packed close, as if trying to look bigger than they really were. A calm voice came from the human fleet. "We still do not wish to fight. This is our final offer. Stand down, and we will help you rebuild what has been damaged." The Empire did not answer. The armada began to move. The humans remained still for a few seconds. Then, without any visible weapon or attack, something changed. The Imperial ships froze. Lights flickered. Engines shut down. Control panels turned off. Every ship across the armada became quiet and powerless. It happened without noise, without damage, without harm. In the war chamber, alarms rang everywhere. Officers scrambled to understand what had happened. But deep inside, they already knew. The human fleet had not destroyed the armada. They had simply turned it off. A soft message came through the speakers. "We do not wish to harm you. We only wish to stop this before lives are lost." The commanding officer leaned on the table, staring at the silent projection of the fallen armada. A long breath left him. He straightened and then spoke a single sentence. "We have no choice now." He sent a message to the human fleet. Across the capital, people watched as human ships slowly approached, not with weapons ready, but with calm formation. People cried, not out of fear, but out of relief. They expected destruction, but instead they saw restraint. They expected fire, but saw peace. The world felt different already. The empire had fallen, not by force, but by its own refusal to listen, and by the humans' overwhelming ability to avoid destroying what they could have wiped out in moments. The story of that day spread across the galaxy. Many called it the day the empire collapsed. But for the people who lived through it, it felt more like the day truth finally arrived. And somewhere in a quiet corner of the war chamber, the young officer who wanted peace stood alone, looking at the sky, thinking that maybe this ending was better than the one they all expected. The news spread across the capital like a calm wave. The empire had surrendered. Many people thought the sky would explode with fire, or that the city would shake under the weight of war. But none of that happened. Instead, the air felt strangely peaceful. The great shield that had once glowed proudly around the planet slowly faded away, leaving the sky clear for the first time in years. People stepped outside their homes, workplaces, and shelters, looking up with uncertain eyes. Far above, human ships hovered like quiet guardians. They did not move aggressively. They did not aim weapons. They simply maintained a steady formation, watching and waiting. Their silence was not threatening. It felt more like a sign that they did not want fear. They wanted understanding that no one on the ground knew what to expect next. Families stood close together. Workers paused their tasks. Traders stopped mid-sentence. Even the air traffic on the lower sky lanes came to a halt. Everyone waited for the first move, unsure whether to feel relief or worry. Inside the Imperial Command Center, the atmosphere was darker, heavier. Officers sat or stood in silence, their minds still trapped in the moment when the entire armada went dark. They had expected noise, but the defeat came in silence. It was the kind of silence that left a deep mark, the kind that would be remembered for years. The commanding officer stood at the center table, shoulders lowered with the weight of everything that had just happened. He had sent the final message to the human fleet, a message that accepted the Empire's failure. He had lived through countless battles, but nothing compared to this. It was not the loss of a war. It was the loss of an identity. Before he could gather his thoughts, a message blinked onto the main screen. It came from the human flagship. Everyone in the room held their breath as the hologram activated. A human representative appeared. The face was calm, the expression steady and serious. There was no victory smile, no sign of pride. Instead, the tone was respectful. The message was short. "We thank you for choosing peace. Our team will land shortly to begin talks. No force will be used. No harm will come to your people. This begins a new chapter, not a takeover." The hologram faded. The officers exchanged confused looks. Many had expected demands, punishments, or conditions. But the message sounded more like an invitation than a warning. The commanding officer let out a slow breath. "Prepare landing protocols," he said softly. "Let them come." On the surface, a large landing area near the capital's center was cleared. Thousands of citizens gathered behind barriers, watching as the sky darkened with the shadow of a descending ship. It was larger than any vessel the Empire had ever built, but its movement was gentle. There were no sparks, no flames from engines, just a soft hum as it lowered into place. The ramp opened slowly. Human envoys stepped out, walking with calm steps, their movements steady and open, not guarded. They wore simple suits with clear markings of peace, not war. The crowd watched in complete silence. One child tugged at their parent's sleeve and whispered, "Are they dangerous?" The parents shook their heads slowly, unsure but hopeful. "They didn't come to hurt us." The envoys stood in the center of the landing platform. They did not raise their hands or make loud announcements. They simply waited. And eventually, Imperial elders, advisors, and officers stepped forward to greet them. The meeting did not happen inside the command center or any grand hall. Instead, it happened outdoors, under the open sky, where citizens could watch from a safe distance. It felt more honest that way. The Empire had ruled from high towers and closed rooms for too long. Now everything was out in the open. The first human envoy spoke in a clear voice, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We did not come here to rule your world. We came to stop a war that did not need to happen. We want peace, cooperation, and a new beginning." An Imperial elder stepped forward. He was old, but his voice was strong, even though his heart felt fragile. "Our people fear that we have lost everything. They don't know what will happen now." The envoy nodded. "We understand fear, but we are not here to replace your culture or your identity. We want to help your world. We want to build trust. We want to share knowledge, not control it." There was a long moment of silence. The crowd held its breath. Then, slowly, the elder bowed his head in respect. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of the entire planet. After that, the tension around the area began to soften. Some people stepped closer. Others whispered to each other. A few even waved shyly at the humans. It felt strange, but also strangely hopeful. Over the next hours, human aid ships arrived. They carried supplies, power units, and medical support. They helped restore the systems that had shut down after the failed fleet launch. Human engineers worked side by side with Imperial technicians, explaining every step without hiding anything. They did not act superior. They acted like partners. Children watched with fascination as human tools repaired damaged towers in minutes. Workers exchanged surprised looks as humans taught them new energy methods. Some even laughed when they realized the solutions were simpler than the Empire ever believed. For the first time in a long time, the capital felt alive in a good way. People saw not conquerors, but helpers. Not enemies, but individuals who cared about peace. Inside the war chamber, the young officer who had voted for negotiation stood by the window, watching the city below. From that height, he could see human and Imperial teams working together. He could hear distant cheers. He could see lights returning to the districts that had gone dark earlier. It felt unreal. Just days ago, the Empire had believed humans were too simple to matter. Now, humans had changed everything not through destruction, but through control and restraint. Through patience instead of pressure. The commanding officer walked beside him, leaning on the railing. He looked tired, but a peaceful kind of tired. "You are right," he said quietly. The younger officer did not smile. He only nodded softly. "I think everyone just needed a chance to breathe." The Empire forgot how to listen. The older man stared at the horizon. Maybe this is what we needed. Not defeat. Not victory. Just a reminder that strength has many shapes. Below them, a human team helped rebuild a shattered communication tower. Children nearby clapped as the tower's lights flickered back to life. A small moment, but one that would stay in their memories forever. As the sun began to set, the sky glowed orange and gold. Human ships reflected the light in soft colors, making them look almost peaceful, like lanterns floating in the evening sky. People filled the streets again, talking, smiling, sharing stories of the day. It was not a celebration of surrender. It was a celebration of survival. A celebration of hope. At the center of the city, the human envoys stood with Imperial leaders. They watched the sunset together, knowing that this day would be remembered for generations. The day the empire collapsed was not marked by destruction. It was marked by a calm shift in history. A shift that allowed two worlds to look at each other, not as rivals, but as partners. As the sky darkened and stars appeared, one thought seemed to pass through every heart on the planet. Maybe the end of the empire was not the end of everything. Maybe it was the beginning of something better. And far above, where the human ships drifted gently in the night sky, their lights blinking like quiet promises, it felt like the universe had just opened a new door, a door toward understanding, door toward peace, a door toward a future no one had expected.